Hey guys, tonight we slip behind the velvet curtain of empire into a world of oil-soaked linen, golden anklets, and scrolls written in blood and diplomacy. This isn't the Cleopatra Hollywood gave you. There's no snake bra, no Mark Antony romance montage, and definitely no Elizabeth Taylor eyeliner. This is the real morning, the real mind, and the real war behind the Queen of the Nile. But before we follow her footsteps across rose-drenched marble and into the heart of power, do the royal thing. Hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? And what time is it in your empire? I love seeing who's tuning in from across the map. Dim the lights. Pulsam juice. And let's begin at the hour before dawn, when the city still sleeps, but the queen is already watching. Congratulations. You've just woken up in the royal palace of Alexandria. The air smells like crushed petals, warm stone, and something older, something imperial. You don't move right away. You don't have to, because you're Cleopatra, 7 Philopator, and no one rushes the Queen of the Nile. Not even the sun. Above you, linen curtains sway like ghosts, embroidered with gold thread. They filter the early light into lines across your skin. Your sheets are soaked in rose water, your skin in yesterday's myrrh. Somewhere outside, a priest is already chanting to Ra, but in here, only silence and Charmian's voice. "My queen," she says softly, "it is time." You rise slowly, with purpose, with grace sharpened by danger. Every motion is deliberate, calculated. Haste is for people who answer to others. You answer to no one. Bare feet meet mosaic. The floor is cool, imported from Rhodes, and lined with goddess wings. You've stood on marble. You've walked on carpets dyed in Tyrian purple. But this is your temple. The robe falls from your shoulders. Hands move across your body, not with affection, but with reverence. Water is brought, not too hot, not too cold. Lotus perfumed. You wash your face, your arms. Gold rings never leave your fingers. A silver mirror rises before you. You stare, not with vanity, with calculation. This is not a face. It is a weapon, a symbol, a language older than Rome. Coal darkens your eyes. Malachite dust outlines your power. Beetle-stained lips, hair braided with gold thread. This is not beauty. This is statecraft. Charmian brings breakfast, figs, honey bread, dates soaked in wine. You eat slowly, reading between the textures. Each fruit imported, each flavor deliberate. The kitchen is its own embassy. Now robed in linen, so fine it whispers, you move to the inner chamber. Papyrus scrolls, wax tablets, ivory letters. One from Rome, one from Thebes. You read neither. Not yet. First, you need the sky. The balcony overlooks your empire. The Nile flows like a silk ribbon through your city. You sip from obsidian cup, pomegranate juice, tart and sacred. Below, traders shout. Fishermen sing. Somewhere an envoy sweats. You smile. Apollo Doris steps from the shadows. A scroll from the vaults, majesty, he says. You take it. No one else has seen it. No one. Of course not. Today there will be choices. A secret meeting. An alchemist. And tonight, a courier from Caesar. But for now, you are still like a blade before the cut. Mid-morning in Alexandria. The sun wraps the city in gold. You walk the length of the royal library, cedar-scented, papyrus-stacked, air thick with ink and jasmine. Scrolls await. Treaties. Threats disguised as flattery. You read each with a smirk. You pass the sculpture gallery. Bronze gods with empty eyes. Each piece arranged not for beauty, but for intimidation. Diplomats wait here. You let them sweat in the presence of divinity. Theophanes arrives. He brings no history, only rumors. Whispers about Octavian, about Caesar Ion, about divinity and succession. You nod. One command. Feed the right rumors. By noon, you sit in judgment. The court is quiet. Ambassadors sweat in silks. You are wrapped in murex purple, falcons stitched into your cloak. Gold snakes coil your ankles. One envoy stares. You speak in his tongue. He blinks, stammers, praises your wisdom. You smile, politely, like a lioness showing just a hint of fawn. A petition from Memphis is presented. Land disputes, temple taxes. You weigh each claim like coins. Justice is theater, and you are the stage. You retreat to your solar chamber. Harp music, rose oil, cool stone. You do not relax. You calculate. Rome is shifting, and power does not sleep. Late afternoon, a dust storm curls on the horizon, like a serpent testing its tongue. Inside the war room, maps are unrolled. Brass markers gleam. You lean over the grain lines, the garrison lists, the letters from Nabatea. The general speaks. You listen. You correct him twice. You step outside to the shade garden. Priests chant. A dancer practices nearby, her arms fluid as the Nile. You watch, not for art, for strength, for control. Every movement is a message. Evening, the sky turns wine dark. The lighthouse burns like the eye of a god. You dine in candlelight, lotus-scented and soft. Apollodorus stands nearby, still armed. A Roman envoy leaves. You do not rise. You sip wine laced with blue lotus. You walk marble paths under olive trees. You speak with spies. One gives you silk. Another gives you bad news. Grain lines threatened. Pergamon plotting. You nod. The gods are silent. So you pray to Isis. Not for power. For clarity. Night falls with heat still in the stones. You enter the baths alone. Steam rises. You pour sandalwood oil into the water. A gift from India. You slip beneath the surface. Eyes open. Watching. Thinking. Midnight. You undress. You bathe. Water flickers with your reflection. Not just a queen. A survivor. A storm in silk. You step onto the balcony. Alexandria sleeps. The stars blink like omens. You whisper one word. Tomorrow. And somewhere, history sharpens its pen. You think you know fire. You don't. Fire isn't red. It isn't gold. It isn't even heat. It's memory. It's silence being rewritten in smoke. And today, the page is yours. You wake to the sound of burning. Not screams. Not bells. Just fire. Slow and deliberate. Chewing through the edges of your world. It crackles with the confidence of something that knows it cannot be stopped. The sky outside is a sickly copper, thick with the breath of ash. The wind moves through the shutters like a whisper that has forgotten how to be kind. Somewhere in the distance, a dog begins to bark, then stops abruptly. You don't move yet. You lie on a straw mat in a borrowed room. The floor creaks with every breath you take. Your mother is beside you, wrapped in silence. Her eyes are open, staring up at a ceiling made of beams older than memory. She has not slept, or maybe she did for a moment, in the way soldiers sometimes sleep between battles. Her hands are folded over her chest like she's already been buried. Her face is waxy in the dim light, her lips moving silently in a prayer she no longer believes in. You study the outline of her hands, the knuckles cracked from work and winter, the same hands that once lifted you over a flooded road. It is the year 1478, and today, your father is going to die. They came for him last night. You remember it clearly because you did not dream. No time for dreams when boots echo on stone and fists pound the door like war drums. Torches lit the faces of strangers who said nothing. They simply opened the door when it was answered and walked inside like they owned the air. The room turned cold the moment they stepped through the threshold. The fire in the hearth hissed out like it knew what was coming. Your father stood there in the lamplight, barefoot and calm. He didn't run. He didn't beg. He only looked at you and said, "Get your shoes." The last thing he did before they bound his wrists was finish writing the sentence he had started. The inquisitors waited. One of them even read it. You remember the twitch of a mouth, trying not to smile. Then they took him. No trial. No last rites. Just rope and accusations older than scripture. Your mother didn't scream. She only held you tight and whispered, "Not yet." That's the only reason you're still breathing. Now, In a house that isn't yours, in a town whose name you do not know, you rise from the mat and feel the weight of morning like a stone between your ribs. The straw clings to your legs, and the air stinks of smoke and damp wood. There's a faint rustle behind the walls. Rats or spirits, you're no longer sure. The floorboards beneath you are warped, blistered from heat that hasn't reached them yet. The fire is still going. Somewhere to the south, beyond the rooftops, smoke climbs into the dawn like a sermon without words. You know where it's coming from. Every town has the same square. Every square has the same platform. Every platform has the same post. The one your father is tied to, or was. You wash your face in cold water from a cracked basin. The mirror above it is stained with age and memory. You do not recognize the boy who stares back. His eyes are darker than yesterday. His jaw is set like stone. His lips are silent because his voice has nowhere to go. A fly buzzes at the corner of the frame, and you swat it away without thinking. Your hands shake. On the table, a crust of bread, a chipped cup, and a folded piece of parchment. One of your father's pages. You don't read it. Not yet. Not now. Reading hurts more than silence. Beside it, a stub of charcoal and a blunt knife. You remember your father's hands on both, always stained, always working. The smell of ink and burnt wool will never leave you. The woman who let you stay says nothing as you pass. Her face is drawn, her mouth thin with fear. She won't speak to you again. Shelter is not safety. It's a favor you cannot repay. She turns away as you cross the threshold, as if even looking at you now might bring fire to her doorstep. She clutches a crucifix that hangs loose around her neck. You step outside. The streets are quiet in that uneasy way, as if the buildings themselves are holding their breath. No one makes eye contact. Doors close gently. Curtains shift behind shutters. You are alone in full view of everyone. You move like smoke, slow, uncertain, impossible to pin down. You feel your ribs move more than you hear your own feet. You walk past the well, past the tannery, past the old tree where merchants once tied their horses. Everything looks smaller in this light. Fragile, burnable. You step over a puddle blackened with soot and wonder whose roof collapsed in the night. A cat darts under a cart, eyes like coals. You pass a child drawing symbols in the dirt with a stick. He looks up at you, then down again. Even he knows what this morning is. His mother calls to him, sharp and low, and he scurries back into the doorway without a word. His drawing is left half finished. A sun, a bird, a spiral. In the market, someone is selling ashes. Relics, he calls them, scooping bits of char into tiny wax pouches. Holy dust from the fire of purification. You almost laugh, but your mouth won't let you. The irony is too sharp to chew. One of the townsmen takes a pouch reverently, presses it to his lips. Another hides his behind a coin purse like shame. You see them both. Then you see it. The square. Empty, except for the guards. Black with scorched fresh. Chains dangling, still warm. A ring of torches no longer needed. The pole stands proud in the center, its top wrapped in smoke. There is no body, no voice, no scream echoing through the air. Just the soft hum of flies and the distant cry of gulls. The smell wraps around your throat and tightens. Only a smell, and a scrap of cloth fluttering from a nail. You recognize it instantly. Blue linen, torn at the cuff. Your father's writing sleeve. He wore it every time he sat at his desk. Said it kept the ink from getting on his skin. The truth stains enough already, he joked once. You stare at that fabric until your eyes blur. You do not cry. Crying would be a kind of permission, and the men who lit the fire don't get that. You clench your jaw until your teeth ache. You count the links in the chain. You memorize the shape of the scorch marks. Instead, you walk. Not home, because home burned long before they struck the match. Not to the forest, because you're not a fugitive. You walk toward the cathedral, toward the men who wrote the sentence, toward the men who preached the match into flame. You walk past the bread sellers and the incense carts, past the stone fountain with the cracked lion head. Everything feels faded, a stage with the actors gone. Even the pigeons seem quieter. The stones beneath your feet seem older than they were yesterday. Your footsteps echo louder than they should. But you keep walking, because someone has to remember what they tried to erase. Someone has to carry the next page. This is not your father's story anymore. This is yours, and you're not done. There are places inside the cathedral where even the priests are afraid to walk. You've heard of them. Whispered rooms behind the altar. Staircases that descend into stone too old for memory. Windows that never let light in. Vaults without doors, only thresholds. That's where they'll keep it, if it still exists. Your father's words, his pages, his name, or whatever they couldn't burn. You push through the front doors like a shadow with a purpose. The air is thick with incense and judgment. Candles flicker in niches carved by faith and fear. Marble saints stare down at you with eyes that have seen too much and never blinked. The floor is cold under your bare feet. It doesn't welcome. It warns. Each stone holds 1,000 secrets, and you feel every one of them in your bones. A priest turns as you enter, but you don't bow. You've forgotten how. You meet his eyes for only a moment. He looks away first. That's all the victory you need for now. You move with quiet fury down the nave, past men kneeling in ash-stained robes, past whispering mouths that pause as you pass. You are smoke among stone. No one stops you. Not yet. You imagine what they think. Another orphan, another soul looking for answers. Let them think it. Let them believe you are harmless. Because when the fire comes again, it will be dressed as ash and walk like you. Behind the choir screen, a door stands open. Just barely. Enough to say, this is not for you. Enough to invite. It has no handle. It has no hinges on your side. But still it opens. You are done asking permission. You slip through. A hallway. Narrow. Uneven. Cold. The walls close in like accusations. The flickering torchlight barely reaches. You pass portraits of martyrs whose eyes follow, their names carved in Latin. You don't know Latin, but you know what fear looks like in stone. Somewhere deeper, a bell chimes the hour, a lonely sound, like someone losing track of time. You walk until the hallway forgets how to be a hallway and becomes a stair. Down. You descend. One step, then another, then 50 more. Your hand trails the wall, fingertips brushing dust and secrets. On the way, you see a cracked fresco, a painting half eaten by moisture, half erased by time. A figure kneels before a fire. The fire kneels back. Behind it, shadows kneel too. You pause for just a breath. You wonder who painted it. You wonder if they also burned. You pass other things too. An alcove filled with broken chains. A wooden bowl filled with black sand. A scorched robe hanging from a nail, untouched by time, but surrounded by a ring of dead moths. Everything here speaks in silence, and what it says is, someone remembered. At the bottom, a door. It is iron-banded, old, heavy with silence. The kind of silence that doesn't end, it just becomes part of the room. You press your ear against it. Nothing. Then, faintly, the sound of paper. Turning. A breath. A rustle. A life still moving. Is the sound of something refusing to be forgotten. You knock. A pause. Then the door opens. He is younger than you expected. Thin. Pale. Ink-stained fingers. A scholar. A clerk. Or a servant of both. His robes are worn. His eyes bloodshot. He looks at you like someone who has seen too many ghosts and doesn't need one more. What do you want? He asks. My father's name? You say. Silence. Not confusion. Recognition. His pages, you add. They burned him. But not all of it. Not everything. I know. The clerk hesitates. He does not say yes. But he does not say no. He turns and you follow. The room beyond is filled with shelves. Thousands of them. Scrolls. Dumb. Binders wrapped in leather and dust. It smells of rot and reverence. The air is thick with memory. You see a ladder, a rope pulley, a desk, a lamp with wax that never stops dripping, A raven perches near the ceiling, silent. The ink here is older than the kingdom. The shelves are marked with symbols, not titles. An eye pierced by lightning, a tree split by axes, a crown drowning in flame. Knowledge filed not by content, but by danger. Name, the clerk asks. You tell him. He walks to a shelf marked with a sigil you don't recognize, a flame pierced by an arrow, and pulls down a single folder. Thin, fragile, wrapped in twine. He handles it like it's something alive. Is this all? You ask. He nods, but something in his face says more. Was it red? You ask. He doesn't answer, but you know. Of course it was. They wouldn't have burned him otherwise. You take the folder. Your hands do not shake now. They are too full of memory. You sit. You open it. Inside, 3 pages. Ink smeared. Corners burned. But alive. Your father's words. The last thing he wrote. A list of names. A question. And a sentence. You read it. Once. Then again. The words are not a prayer. They are a fuse. A chain of thought wrapped in fire. You trace the letters with your fingers. The question is simple. Who profits from silence? The sentence is worse. When the truth is caged, it begins to sharpen its teeth. You understand now. These are not just writings. They were warnings. Codes. Matches waiting for the right hand. You. The names on the list, you recognize some. Merchants. Clergy. Officials. Men who sat in judgment. One, the mayor's brother. Another, a scribe from the courthouse. All of them had reasons to fear your father's pen. You fold the pages. Gently. Like something sacred. Like something that might bleed. Did anyone else read this? You ask. The clerk looks at you again. No one who mattered. He's lying. But not to you. To himself. You nod. You stand. You reach into your pocket and leave a coin on the desk. Not because it's owed, but because you were raised to pay for what you take, even if it's just memory. You pause. Do you believe in ghosts? You ask. Not until today, he says quietly. You walk to the doorway, then turn back. There's more, isn't there? He doesn't answer. You don't need him to. As you step back into the hallway, the door closes behind you without a sound. The wax from the lamp keeps dripping. The raven watches you go. The stairs feel shorter on the way up. The hallway, less narrow. Or maybe it's just you who has changed. When you reach the cathedral floor again, the priests have moved. The kneelers are empty. Only the candles remain. Watching, you feel them flicker at your back as you walk. Outside, the morning has ripened. The sky is no longer copper, but bruised. The town hums again, but nothing sounds right. You walk past a woman buying figs, a man sweeping the front of his shop, a child kicking dust. All of them alive. All of them pretending not to notice the smoke still lingering. You do not stop. You do not pray. Your father is already heard. And now his voice is yours. And it has teeth. And it is hungry. You do not return the way you came. You turn left at the fork where the fountain drips blood-colored rust, and the pigeons drink like they don't know better. You pass the baker's window, still shattered from the last riot. The shelves inside restocked like defiance. You follow the crack in the cobblestones that runs like a vein straight to the house your father built. Or at least the one he died in. It still stands. Crooked, leaning like it forgot how to hold itself up. The shutters hang at angles, warped and beaten. Ivy has claimed most of the north wall. The door is locked, but not for you. The key is still hidden under the third stone in the garden path, where your mother once kept dried lavender. The smell is long gone. Everything is. You step inside. Silence doesn't greet you. It interrogates. Dust cloaks everything like funeral shrouds. The table where he wrote, still there. Scratched with ink, gouged with knife marks, scorched at the edge. 1,000 pages once passed through his hands here. You touch the surface. What remembers? It murmurs things if you press hard enough. You do. The hearth is cold. The chair is empty. A cracked oil painting leans against the wall. A woman's face half gone, the eyes smeared by water or rage. You don't remember if it was your mother or not. You don't ask. Upstairs, the floorboards creak with every breath. Your old room is still filled with broken things that once mattered. A shoe missing its pair, a wooden carving of a fox, a bedsheet still faintly stained with ink and blood. You open the wardrobe. Inside, paper. Not many, but enough. They are hidden in the lining, folded into the hems of coats, sewn into the seams like contraband. You tear them out carefully. Your father's handwriting, unmistakable. Sharp, slanted, impatient. Angry even on parchment. You sit on the floor. One page, a draft of his last essay, different from the one in the cathedral. More raw, less careful. It names names, dates, transactions, betrayals. Another, a letter to you, never sent. The ink has run in places. You read it slowly. You will be hated for the things I left you. But worse would be to leave you nothing. Truth is not safe, but neither is silence. Forgive me. You don't, but you don't throw it away either. You find a map. Crude, ink smudged, circles and lines, codes and places, some marked with ash, others with small red dots. You know two of them. One is the prison where he died. The other is where the mayor keeps his private books. The rest, you'll have to learn. You spend hours there, piecing things together, matching memories to ink, following threads that lead to knots no one wants untangled. Outside, the sun moves. People pass. Somewhere, a bell tolls for someone else's grief. A cupboard in the hallway creaks, open when you brush past it. You nearly miss the trapdoor hidden beneath the broken boards. But the sound is off, hollow, echoing. You pry up the wood. Beneath, stairs, narrow and steep, leading into a crawl space carved like a wound into the earth. You take a lantern from the wall. It barely works, but it glows enough to show the path. Down there, the air is thick with mildew and ink. The walls are lined with crates and bundles wrapped in wax cloth. You open one. More pages. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Some are full. Others only bear lines. Sketches. Half-thoughts. Symbols you can't yet read. One folder contains witness testimonies. Another, letters addressed to no one and everyone. At the bottom, a locked iron box. You pry it open with a chisel. Inside, a book bound in red leather. Its cover bears your father's sigil, a broken quill with fire in its nib. Inside are lists, names, faces, drawings of buildings, diagrams of meetings, records of debts and crimes, and words spoken in quiet corners. It's more than evidence. It's a death sentence for someone. Maybe for you. You close the book. You hold it against your chest like a weapon disguised as memory. Upstairs again, you light the hearth. Not for warmth. For ritual. You burn a handful of pages you don't need. False trails, duplicated notes. The smoke curls toward the ceiling, writing its own secrets on the rafters. The firelight catches a frame on the mantel you hadn't noticed. Your father, younger, smiling. The kind of smile that expects nothing back. You don't smile with him, but you don't look away. You pack the pages into a satchel. You roll the map and tuck it deep. The red leather book goes in last. The blank book, the one you found behind his bed, you tie with string and tuck inside your cloak. Before you leave, you carve a mark on the inside of the doorframe. A sigil, the same one your father used. Someone might find it. Someone who needs it. Outside, the wind has changed. The moon rises like a blade, sharp and silver. You head toward the edge of town. The forge first, then the press, then the name at the top of the page, a judge who never read the laws he passed. You remember his voice. You remember the smell of his gloves. Tonight, you begin to write again. Not with ink, with consequence. The house watches you leave. It does not cry, but it does remember. The press groans like a wounded animal. You're crouched behind crates in the back room of an old print shop, one that used to turn out hymns and civic bulletins. Now it prints something sharper. The new sheets are still damp, hot with revolution, ink bleeding like open veins. Outside, the street is quiet. Too quiet. You've been here an hour already, maybe more. The girl who runs the press, barely 15, all fire and splinters. nods as she feeds another blank into the jaws of the machine. Her brother loads pages into sacks, heavy with words that aren't supposed to exist. Words your father wrote, words you've rewritten, words they'll die for if they're caught. You're not afraid. You're past that. Fear is a luxury. Now, there's only purpose. The sack you carry out the door is light, but what's inside could set a city on fire. You sling it over your shoulder and disappear into the fog. You deliver the first bundle to the baker, 3 loaves wrapped around a manifesto. Then to the apothecary, where the old man takes the papers like they're medicine. Then to the smithy, where fire meets fire. At the corner of Stonebridge and Vine, you duck into a wine cellar turned meeting hall. Inside, faces, familiar but changed. People who once whispered prayers now speak your name like a command. The butcher's wife has memorized half the pamphlet already. The schoolteacher folds her copy inside a child's primer. The priest says nothing but lights a candle over the stack, then nods. He understands. Someone passes you a scrap of parchment. A name, a place, an hour. You nod. You leave before the wine is poured. The streets smell like ash and wet stone. Lamps flicker overhead, yellow and dim. You walk with your head down, but your mind is up, listening, watching. At the corner of Iron Street and Candle Lane, you pass a man in a judge's robe. He doesn't see you, but you see him. He's on the list. You follow. Not quickly. Not yet. You give him time to lead. Past the square. Past the fountain where bodies were washed last year after the riot. Into a narrow alley where the shadows thicken. You step out behind him. He turns. Recognition. Then panic. You don't speak. You don't have to. You toss the pamphlet at his feet, a copy with his name underlined in red. He reaches for it. You press him against the wall. He stammers, begs, offers coin. You tell him this isn't about money. It's about memory. He gasps. You're his child. You nod. Just once. He asks if you're going to kill him. You say, not yet. You leave him trembling, the paper still in his hand, the ink already staining his skin. Tomorrow, his name will be on every door, every wall. Truth shouted. You walk on. At the old tannery, a boy waits with oil and paste. He smuggles pamphlets in side coats and boots. At the mill, a girl hides them in bags of flour. The rebellion wears aprons and tool belts and dust. It doesn't march yet. It seeps. Like smoke. This city is a body, and you've learned where the nerves are. You stop by a candlemaker's shop. The candles are hollow, filled with tiny scrolls. Wax-sealed whispers. They'll burn messages into the air. In a butcher's stall, you pass a satchel to a silent man with broken fingers. He nods. Tomorrow, his stall will offer meat and manifestos. Every corner you turn, the movement has a face. Some of them children, some with eyes too old for their years. You watch them take your words like armor. By midnight, half the city will know. By morning, they'll start to believe. By dusk tomorrow, the first stone might fly. You return to the press. The girl has fallen asleep at the lever. Her hands inked black. You place a blanket over her shoulders and turn the wheel yourself. The press screams, but still sings. There's no such thing as safety anymore. Only speed. Only impact. You print until your arms ache. Until the ink runs out. Until you forget your own name and remember only the words. When silence feeds the fire, paper becomes kindling. Outside, the city holds its breath. But in the tunnels under Market Street, where the pipes drip and rats whisper, someone is already preparing the next move. In the cellar beneath the Red Hall, men in city guard uniforms read your words by candlelight and choose sides. On the rooftops above Iron Square, watchers light signals with mirrors and smoke. In a locked room beneath the ministry archives, someone slips a red book into a satchel and disappears before the guard returns. You've struck first, and clean. Now comes the part where the city bleeds. And you'll be the one to name the wound. It begins with a whisper, then glass breaks. You're already awake. You've been awake all night. Ink-stained, blister-fingered, heart pounding to a rhythm not quite your own. The streets are too still. That's how you know something's coming. Silence is never safe. Not here. Not now. You step out into dawn. Smoke rises from the baker's roof. Not fire. Not yet. Just flour and heat and the smell of bread. But it smells like war. They're shouting a few blocks north. Word travels fast now. Faster than truth. Faster than lies. The first stone hits a constable. You hear it before you see it. The wet crack of bone. The rush of boots. The roar of a crowd. Iron Square is flooded. Not with water, but with people. Aprons, tunics, brass buttons, veils. The faces you passed in quiet for weeks now shout in unison. Not your name. Not yet. Just a chant. One word, over and over, louder each time. Free. You find the girl from the press, standing on a barrel, pamphlet in hand, her voice shrill and breaking, but determined. She's reading aloud, quoting you, quoting your father. The guards try to push forward. They fail. A sea of fists meets them. Someone, a boy, younger than you, swings a hammer stolen from a smith's stall. Another throws ink in an officer's eyes. A third pours oil on the steps of the courthouse. You don't start the fire, but you don't stop it either. Soon it climbs, licks the stone with hungry tongues. A banner goes up in smoke, then a window, then a door. Inside, officials run, but outside the city stays. You move like a shadow, like breath, to the alley behind the tax house, to the fountain where the judge used to pass. There's no judge now, just a crowd, and a name, yours, painted in red on the wall. People point. You don't run. They don't grab you. They lift you. Someone places the press girl's hand in yours. Another tosses the manifesto like confetti. The square is alive now. Not just angry. Alive, but not free yet. From the bell tower above the eastern wall, you see them. Rows of armored guards. Reinforcements. Not local. Not hesitant. Brought in from outside. No sympathy. No names. Just orders. They march. You run to the tannery. The boy is ready. He hands you the signal, a flare wrapped in oilcloth. You light it. Green smoke. The rooftops answer. Mirrors. Lamps. Horns. The mill shutters slam shut. Doors open. Hidden ones. Basements become infirmaries. Bakers become medics. Every person plays a part. But the enemy has teeth. They strike hard. Fast. They cut through the first wave like blades through thread. The press girl is gone, lost in the smoke or the chaos. You don't know. You can't look. You grab a cobblestone. You throw. It doesn't matter if you miss. You just have to throw. Everyone sees you. They follow. Stones become a wall, then a weapon. One of them falls, then another. You reach the press again. It's still standing, but barely. Pages scatter like birds. You gather what you can. A handful. Enough. You run. To the steps of the temple. You hold them high. The crowd hushes. The guards freeze. You speak. For the first time. Not from shadow. Not in ink. But aloud. You tell them the names. You tell them the crimes. You name the fathers and the chains and the debts paid in blood. You name your father. Then yourself. You speak until your voice cracks. Until your throat burns. Until the words feel less like a speech and more like a spell. They listen, even the guards. One drops his baton, one kneels, then silence, then cheering, then something else entirely. A sound like wind, like relief, like mourning, all in one breath. The city has bled. Now it breathes. You sit at the top step. Your fingers shake. Your lips crack. The ink is still on your palms. You look out over Iron Square, scorched and broken. But something new begins. Not peace. Not yet. But possibility. Good news, you're not dead. Bad news, you're in Colima, 1951. You wake up in a coffin with windows. Technically, it's a barack. Realistically, it's a freezing wooden tomb lined with coughing corpses who haven't figured out they're still breathing. You're one of them. The air is a cocktail of sweat, piss, mildew, and regret. The floor is sticky in places and frozen in others, like someone tried to mop hell with vodka and gave up halfway through. The ceiling groans like it wants to fall on you, and part of you hopes it does. You slept in your clothes, which is good, because they've frozen to your skin. That's the only thing keeping your legs intact. You turn your head too fast. Your neck cracks. You try to stretch. Your spine answers with static. Pain, yes, but pain is proof. You're still in the game. A boot finds your ribs. Not with rage, with routine. Potiom. Get up. You'd love to argue. Really, you would. Maybe throw in a joke about labor efficiency. But that boot belongs to a man with a Mosin Nagant and the patience of a landmine. So you rise. Slowly. Regretfully. Every joint pops like old furniture. Your spine announces its displeasure. Congratulations. You've aged a decade overnight. Again, someone across the room is crying. No one tells them to stop. Crying is safer than talking. Talking gets remembered. Remembering gets punished. Outside, it's minus 40 degrees and counting. The guard call it bracing. You call it involuntary taxidermy. Your breath freezes in the air like guilty secrets. Breakfast is a ladle of gray water and a slice of bread with the personality of a brick. It tastes like it was baked during the Russo-Japanese War. If bread could rot and petrify at the same time, this is what it would taste like. You chew anyway. Hunger is the only reliable sensation here. Then the march. You and 300 other state-decorated criminals, sorry, enemies of the people, shuffle toward the worksite. A lovely clearing in the woods where frozen mud waits to break your spirit and your shovel. Your job today: dig through permafrost with a metal toothpick. The tools bend. The guards don't. The sun does nothing. Just loiters behind clouds like a drunk god avoiding responsibility. The snow is crusted over with lies and old blood. A man beside you collapses before lunch. Face first. No sound. The guards drag him away like he's furniture with a dent. No one reacts. One guy mutters, "Lucky bastard." You keep digging. Why? Because the alternative is worse. The pit. Solitary. The kind where you can scream all you want and only the ice listens. Someone loses a glove. Just one. By the time he finds it, 3 fingers are purple. The guard laughs. Next time, lose your whole hand. Saves paperwork. You'd smile, but your lips are cracked. At some point, your fingers split open. Blood meets steel. You keep going. 1, because you have no choice. 2, because you're not done remembering. They caught you with a book. Poetry, no less. Not subversive. Just beautiful. That was your crime, beauty. Rhymes cost you freedom. Metaphors cost you your teeth. 10 years. It's year 3. The sun never really rises. It just rolls over behind the clouds and mumbles, "Not today." A joke you tell yourself. You laugh. Quietly. So no one hears. You return to barracks with a limp and a stare. They count heads. One's missing. They don't care who. You do, but not out loud. In your bunk, under your rag blanket, you hide a scrap. It's not much. Just dates. Names. Notes. Who died when. What they said before. It's nothing, which is why it's dangerous. Tonight, a guard finds it. He reads it. Looks at you. Doesn't hit you. Worse, he smiles. Tomorrow, he says, you get to see the pit. Then he leaves. You lie there, staring into the rafters. Someone snores. Someone prays. Someone dies. But you write the silence down. In your head, word by word. And in the dark, you almost smile. Because if they're afraid of your words, that means they still matter. And so do you. Welcome to Kalima. You're going to hate every second of it. But maybe, just maybe, you'll survive it long enough to matter again. So, you're awake again. That's starting to feel personal. The guard didn't forget. Neither did you. The pit was promised last night, and promises are sacred out here, especially the ones made with a smile. Your boots crunch across ice and something else. Something softer. You don't ask what. You don't look down. You keep your eyes fixed forward, just like the others, pretending you don't smell what everyone smells. The pit is real, and it's not a metaphor. It's a hole, a box carved into the permafrost and lined with moral bankruptcy. No bed, no food, no God, just you, the dark, and whatever rodents get lonely enough to visit. They shove you down a ladder, barely. You hit the bottom like a sack of convictions. The air is wet. It smells like history. Not the good kind. The kind that gets burned, buried, and quietly denied in public archives. There's no lamp, no slit of daylight, just a whisper of frost falling from the ceiling like dandruff from a dead man's scalp. The silence here isn't empty. It presses, like it wants something from you, like it's taking inventory. Your eyes adjust. Slowly, shapes form. Two of them. One in the far corner, curled like a dying question mark. The other sitting upright, unmoving. Statues carved from regret and undernourishment. You wait. They wait back. Hours pass like weeks. Time bends down here. You're not sure if you're blinking or hallucinating. Your bladder tries to file a complaint, but the pit has no suggestion box. Finally, the curled one speaks. What did you do? You answer without thinking. Poetry. A pause. Then a quiet laugh. Not cruel, just confused. Luxury crime, the voice says. I killed a cow. You don't ask why. That's not the point. Down here, names and reasons are ornamental. Everyone's here for being inconvenient. The only real crime is being visible. Some wrote a joke. Some laughed at the wrong time. One guy made eye contact with a colonel. That was enough. The other shape finally moves. A face appears. Hollow cheeks. Eyes like burned-out lamps. No talking, it croaks. They listen. You glance up. At what? Rats? God? Snowflakes with badges? No one clarifies. The floor is mud. It's always wet, no matter how cold. A kind of defiance. The pit resents the world above, and it shows. You try to sleep. The corner man mutters prayers. Not to God, but to someone else. Lena, he says. Don't look. Over and over. His voice cracks like old parchment. You want to ask who Lena was, but you suspect she didn't make it past the opening credits of a sentence. You finally speak. How long? Burned-out eyes shrugs. Till you forget why you're here. A rat walks across your foot like it owns the place. Its whiskers twitch like it's judging your life choices. You don't flinch. Day 2, or 3, or 11. You start writing poems in your head again, just to know where the edges are. One about snow that never melts. Another about a girl who lit candles with her fingertips. One about your stomach writing protest letters to your spine. The prayers grow louder. Corner man's lost to memory. Burned out eyes hums. A tune you can't place. But it's ancient. It sounds like giving up. You join in, not because you know the words, but because it's the only concert ticket available. You get 1 cup of water a day. No food. They say it's to cleanse the soul. More like marinated. If your soul had bones, they'd be showing by now. You start naming the shadows. One is Stalin. One is the censor who redacted your name. One is your mother, holding a spoon and crying. One is that friend who said, "Don't worry, it's just a short sentence." You haven't decided whether that was a bad joke or a prophecy. At some point, they open the hatch. It's not light that hits you. It's judgment. A raw blast of unfiltered sky that feels more like an accusation than a reprieve. You're pulled out like a carrot. Thin, shaking, half dead, but technically edible. The guard looks disappointed. He wanted you broken. He wanted a sobbing apology or a confession scrawled in blood. Instead, he gets a man who remembers rhymes. You blink at the sky. It's still gray, still cruel, but it's up. You survived the pit, which means you're ready for worse. Congratulations. Back to work. You're back in the land of the living. Well, the walking, wheezing, frostbitten dead. But semantics don't matter here. The important part is you're upright and not hallucinating much. Or if you are, it's at least thematically consistent. The guards dump you back into the work column like a missing puzzle piece from a very depressing jigsaw. You don't get a welcome party. You don't get questions. Just a shovel. The same one you used before. You recognize the crack in the handle. It's comforting in a masochistic way, like being beaten with a childhood memory. Today you dig. Same frozen soil, same broken rhythm, same whispered groans. But something's different. Someone's laughing. You turn. At first, you think it's a cough. But no, it's too rhythmic, too deliberate. It's coming from a man with one eyebrow, two teeth, and the posture of a heretic awaiting his bonfire. Did you hear? He wheezes. They found a guard dead this morning. Froze solid, leaning against the latrine like he was waiting his turn. You blink. The man grins, a horrific expression, like a skull caught mid-punchline. They say he saw his own shadow and declared 6 more years of winter. You stare. He cackles. A few others twitch. One man coughs blood. It's unclear if it's from laughter or tuberculosis. He sticks out a hand. They call me Terakov, like the playwright, only worse. You shake it. It's cold and damp, like everything here. But it's alive. Terakov becomes your shadow. He works beside you, talks beside you, sometimes breathes for you when yours gives out. He tells jokes that shouldn't be funny, but they are, because anything that isn't the void is a revelation, like the one about the prisoner who asked for a lighter sentence. So the judge gave him life because what's lighter than eternity? Or the one where a man escapes, makes it 400 kilometers through the woods, only to return because he missed the bread. It crunches like rebellion, Terakov says. Or the one where they found a rat chewing through a uniform. When the guard asked why, it said, "At least this tastes less like guilt." You laugh, not loudly, but enough. A raspy chuckle that fogs the air and reminds you your lungs still work, barely. And it does something. The cold doesn't feel warmer. The guards don't seem nicer, but your spine uncurls a little. Your heart remembers it has 4 chambers instead of one solid lump. The silence around you, which used to press like a judge's gavel, now rings hollow, like it's missing its punchline. Terakov starts passing you notes. Not paper, just words. Whispered punchlines you repeat in your head while swinging the shovel. Rhythms, patterns, little bombs of rebellion, little reasons to keep pretending. You know why the snow's so white? He asks once. Because it never had to explain itself to a tribunal. You nearly drop your tool. Someone notices. You blame a cramp. The guard nods. He's had one since 1938. Terakov is more than a joker. He's a contraband smuggler of sanity. He tells a story about a man who swallowed a pencil to keep his thoughts private. The guards x-rayed him every day for a month. Then one day, he passed a poem. They sent him to the mines. For literature, another about a camp choir that rehearsed silence so well, the warden promoted them to surveillance. They learned to harmonize in Morse code, he says solemnly. We never heard them again. You start sharing too. Carefully. A line here. A pun there. You edit in your head while digging. Punchlines sharpen like ice shards. One day, you drop a new one. What do you call a gulag birthday party? Terakov grins. What? A surprise inspection. He laughs so hard he drops his shovel. The sound cracks like heresy. A guard barks. The moment dies, but not before others hear it. And once heard, a joke is harder to kill than a witness with a diary. That night in the barracks, someone scribbles that joke into the side of a bed frame. Tomorrow, they'll blame the lice, but it'll still be there, etched like prophecy or mold. You start keeping a mental ledger. Jokes traded like cigarettes. Humor as currency. If the guards knew, they'd outlaw it, declare it a counter-revolutionary substance, which it is. Then one day, Terakov disappears. Just gone. No one says anything. The guards don't mention it. His name vanishes like it was never assigned. His jokes stay behind, though. You whisper them to the man beside you, who hasn't spoken in weeks. He snorts. That's progress. At night, in the barracks, you start scribbling again. Not names this time. Not dates. Jokes. Some are just echoes. Others are new. Yours. What do you call a gulag choir? A silent majority. Why did the prisoner cross the camp? No reason. He was told to. How many guards does it take to screw in a light bulb? None. Darkness is mandatory. What do you get when you mix snow, concrete, and despair? A promotion. What's the official currency in the gulag? Regret. What did the poet say before the firing squad? I hope this edits well. What's the most feared word in the camp? Volunteer. You laugh. Softly. Someone else joins in. You don't know their name. They don't know yours. But for 5 seconds, you remember what it's like to be dangerous. Not with fists, with punchlines. And that's enough to make the frost shiver. Even the rats pause, as if listening. The first sign of the thaw isn't visual. It's olfactory. One morning, you wake up gagging on the scent of unfiltered humanity. Not sweat, that's year-round. Not mold, that's permanent. No, this is new. This is the stench of wool and skin and shame warming to just above corpse temperature. Spring, apparently, has come to Siberia. The frost on the inside of the barracks peels away like old wallpaper. The wooden bunks groan in surprise. The guards, not yet adjusted to sunlight, blink like bats shoved into church. Someone sneezes. Someone else calls it optimism. They both get fever. You step outside and hear water. Not a lot. Just a few sullen drips from the edges of the roof, falling onto patches of snow that have started to look suspiciously like slush. The sky is no longer lead, but pewter, an upgrade. The mud comes first. Not real mud. Gulag mud. It's a mix of earth, industrial ash, and something that smells like forgotten soup. The camp turns to soup. Your boots, such as they are, develop new holes just to protest. The guards call it marching season. Work quotas increase. As the ground softens, new projects arrive. Trenches, fences, pit latrines that may or may not become mass graves, depending on the week's schedule. With the earth thawing, old things reappear. Bones, scrap metal, a spoon engraved with the year 1932, a frozen boot with part of a foot still inside. Terekov would have had a joke for that. You think of one. Why did the skeleton fail escape? He lost his soul. You say it aloud. One man wheezes. One collapses. Hard to tell who laughed. But laughter, like mold, returns in the thaw. Your joke spread. Not fast. That would be suspicious. But steadily, quietly, like a rebellion of thought. In a place where language is rationed, comedy is contraband. You get a nickname. Yummer. Not creative, but it sticks. Like lice. A guard mutters it once, then pretends he didn't. You survive another day. Spring brings more than mud. It brings prisoners from other camps. Transfers. Survivors. Ghosts. They shuffle in, wide-eyed and jaundiced, clutching their past like smuggled tobacco. One of them knows your name. Real name. You pretend not to hear. He tells a story about Terekov. Last seen digging somewhere near Magadan. Or maybe it was a joke. Hard to tell anymore. Then, one afternoon it happens. A tree blooms. Just one. Barely a bloom. More like a botanical shrug. But it's there. A tiny blush of color, defiant in a world of monochrome despair. The entire work column stops. Stares. For once, even the guards don't yell. Is it edible? Someone asks. No, you say. Worse. It's hopeful. They laugh. You're not sure why. Maybe you said it right. Maybe it's the mud in everyone's brain. Later, someone carves a poem into the tree's bark. You never find out who. It's short. 3 lines. It ends with the word home. The next morning, the tree is gone. Chopped down. Burned for warmth. Hope, it turns out, is flammable. But the roots remain. And the joke. You tell again. And again. Each time, the world feels 1 degree less frozen. The frost retreats. The guards get sloppy. The dog's less vicious. The sun stays longer. The stars come back. You start to wonder, what if the thaw isn't just weather? What if it's memory? What if the soil isn't the only thing starting to loosen? Spring in the Gulag is a liar. The snow melts, yes. The frost recedes. The ground sighs. But nothing grows. Nothing good, anyway. Just mud, rot, and a new kind of silence, the wet kind. The kind that squelches beneath boots and gums up tools. The kind that smells like old breath and fresh graves. And then there's the hunger. You thought you knew it. The gnaw, the dull ache. The kind that makes you dream of bread crusts like they were lovers. But this is new. This is cellular. The kind of hunger that makes your bones feel hollow, like the marrow got bored and left. The kind that rewrites your sense of time. Days marked not by sun or snow, but by the flavor of boiled bark. You chew moss like it's currency. You eye rats not with disgust, but negotiation. Someone trades a button for a fish head. A real fish head. You've seen less joy at weddings. A rumor circulates. Someone caught a pigeon. That night, the man who caught it is found with feathers in his mouth and his hands broken. No one asks questions. They just take notes. You find a beetle. Big. Shiny. It looks like it might know a secret. You eat it. It doesn't. At roll call, the guards count slower. Like subtraction takes more effort when there are fewer of you. One man collapses mid-number. They count past him. Someone whispers about a food shipment coming. They always whisper it. It's always coming. It never comes. The soup gets thinner. The jokes get darker. What's the difference between soup and memory? Soup has a chance of returning. You trade a story for a spoon. You trade your belt for an extra slice of moldy rye. You trade your silence for a laugh. The exchange rate is brutal, but better than starvation. And then, as if summoned by sarcasm, the shipment arrives. Barrels, boxes, sacks of God knows what. The guards line you up like children at a mockery of Christmas. You receive a tin of something brown. It has a label. It used to have letters. Now it has a smell. You eat it. It's meat? Someone says horse. Someone else says wolf. Terekov would have said both. In love, no one laughs. The hunger doesn't go away. It just learns to pace itself. Your dreams turn feral. You see loaves of bread performing ballet. A sausage floats past your bunk, whispering your name in German. You wake up biting your own tongue. A man tries to escape. Not for freedom, for food. There's a village 10 kilometers away, he says. Chickens, potatoes, reality. He's found 2 days later, hugging a tree stump and sobbing about onions. They drag him back with a new limp and an older soul. You try to write a joke about it, but all that comes out is what's red, white, and crawls toward disappointment. A prisoner with hope. The barracks grows quieter. Even the lice seem subdued. You fantasize about butter. Not eating it, just holding it, looking at it, smelling it without rationing the air. Then one day, without fanfare, someone laughs. You look up. It's the new man, the one who traded his boots for a ladle. He's telling a joke, a bad one, about soup. It's not funny, but it is. And suddenly, for a moment, the hunger pauses, just for a beat. You remember your name, and you whisper it to the soup. You don't notice the moment it begins. There's no trumpet, no fire in the sky, just a piece of paper, read by a man whose beard could house a second man. A name is called, not yours. Then another, still not yours. Then a third, yours. And the silence after is louder than the snow ever was. You're being released, or transferred, or reevaluated, which is what they say when the paperwork forgets what it was punishing you for. You pack quickly, which is to say, you look at the floor and decide which lice are worth taking. A guard walks you out, not the usual one. This one has a face like a worn-out prayer and a limp that sounds personal. No jokes, he says. You say nothing, which is almost a joke. They march you to a truck, covered, wooden benches, smells like anticipation and wet rope. You sit beside another man who smells like boiled boot. Where you going? He asks. You shrug. Wherever forgetting is cheaper. He doesn't laugh, but he nods, like that was the right answer. The road is mud and memory. You bounce through forests that remember better things. Trees that saw the first prisoners come, and probably the last. The checkpoint comes too soon. There's a gate, a list, a man with spectacles and an expression like a thesis on disappointment. He waves you through, and that's it. No speech, no apology, no our bad. Just a road, a forest, and a silence so heavy it collapses part of your spine. You walk. You don't know where. Forward. Outward. Somewhere not here. Every step feels stolen. Every breath like it should cost something. You pass a tree stump. Someone carved a face into it. It smiles at you. You smile back. You're not sure why. The sky doesn't know what to do. It tries sunshine, then snow, then wind. Typical. By nightfall, you reach a village. Maybe it has a name, maybe not. A dog barks at you like you insulted its grandmother. You take that as a welcome. You find a bench outside a bakery. Closed, but it smells like bread lived here once. You sit, and for the first time in forever, no one counts your bones. No one barks an order. No one says step forward. You hear laughter inside. Children, maybe ghosts. Hard to tell. You don't cry. You don't laugh. You just sit, and the hunger is still there. But now it's layered, not just for food, but for memory, for language, for anything that doesn't rhyme with frostbite. A woman walks by. She gives you a look. Not pity, not suspicion, recognition, like she's seen that coat before, or the eyes beneath it. She nods. You nod back. And just like that, you're real again. Not safe, not whole, but real. The gulag is behind you. Not gone, just behind. You'll carry it. In your teeth. In your laugh. In the way you still flinch when someone says volunteer. But you're out, and the joke's still yours. That's the exit. And the punchline. You wake up to the sound of chickens arguing outside and the distinct scent of burning wood. Maybe not. You hope it's just the tavern chimney, but something in your gut says it's someone's widow again. That's how mornings begin now, with prayers, soot, and screaming at a distance. Your bed is a sack of straw stuffed with regret and dead lice. Your blanket is an old horse saddle. You call it blanket because naming its saddle made it too real. Your spine makes 3 separate sounds as you sit up, each one louder than the last. You stretch, something pops in your neck, and crawl toward the wash basin, which has 2 functions, drinking and regretting. It smells faintly of something that once was lavender, but now mostly smells like tin and denial. You look in the mirror, not a real mirror, just a polished shard of pewter hammered flat enough to reflect your doubts. You see a woman, strong jaw, clear eyes, big mistake. Strong women don't last long here. People like their women like their bread, pale, quiet, and full of holes. You pour cold water on your face and feel alive for 3 seconds before the chill turns to rot gut. You got a bucket to scrub, a crust of bread to chew, and a husband to outlive. Maybe, if the good Lord doesn't decide you're next in line for combustion. You rub your hands with ash to keep them warm and think about how yesterday the preacher said witches can't cry. You cried all night, but only inside. Outside, your neighbor Agnes is already sweeping a yard that has no dust. She watches you like her broom bristles report directly to God. Yesterday, she called you odd. Last week, she said your cabbage looked too green. The week before, your dog barked at her shadow, and she nearly fainted with theatrical sincerity. You once helped her deliver a breech baby. Big mistake number 2. There are 3 rules in this village. Don't stand out. Don't speak too well. Don't save anyone. There's a knock at your door. Not the gentle kind. Not the morning pies kind. The 3 men and a rope kind. The kind that smells like leather gloves and last meals. You freeze. Your daughter, asleep in the loft, turns over. You don't move. The knock comes again. Firmer. Like guilt. This time, someone calls your name. They say it wrong. They always say it wrong when they're about to hang you. You're not a person to them anymore. Just a vowel in a death list. You open the door. It's Thomas Griggs, the church constable, flanked by 2 wide-shouldered boys with the eyes of men who enjoy watching flames. Thomas holds a rolled paper. He's not literate, but he's memorized the dance. He coughs for effect. By order of the magistrate, he begins, and you stop listening. Because you already know the tune. It starts with questions, then rumors, then ropes. You've lived through this 3 times already. The first time it was your aunt. The second time your friend. The third time, a girl who read too fast. The town called her possessed. You called her promising. Accused of consorting with the devil, conspiring by charms and unnatural herbs, and whispering to the moon. Thomas clears his throat like he's proud. He adjusts his collar like it's made of justice, not pigskin. You laugh, but your mouth is dry, probably from all the whispering. You're given a choice. Come quietly or come screaming. You choose the third option. You stare at them and say, "Give me time to dress." They nod, because decency is important when you're walking toward a noose. You close the door slowly. Your daughter stirs in the loft and asks if everything's all right. Her voice is so small, it could be crushed by a look. You lie. You always lie. That's how women survive in this town. With silence, skill, and the occasional prayer for the moon to just crash into the earth and get over with. You reach for your cloak, the blue one, not because it's warm, but because the last woman they burned wore brown, and you refuse to match her ashes. Petty maybe, but in a world where dignity's outlawed, pettiness is rebellion. You tie your hair back. You light a candle at the windowsill for show. For Agnes, mostly. And then you open the door again. This time, history writes your name, or maybe just erases it a little more neatly. The walk to the magistrate's hall is exactly 13 minutes long, but your feet age a year with every step. The constable walks ahead like he's escorting royalty, though his boots are muddy and his coat has a rip in the back shaped like regret. The two boys behind you keep close. One whistles. The other carries the rope like it's a picnic basket. The town is awake now. Curtains shift. Doors creak, open just wide enough for judgment to squeeze through. Agnes stands at her fence, pretending to adjust a flower pot that hasn't had a flower in it since the last Pentecost. She makes the sign of the cross, but upside down, like she's warding off your shadow. Her face is smug enough to curdle milk. You used to smile at her. That was mistake number 3. A child runs beside you for a while. You don't recognize him. He stares like you've grown horns. Maybe you have. Maybe they're invisible unless you look with cruelty. He holds a lump of bread in one hand and something furry in the other. Could be a toy. Could be lunch. He grins. You do not. You pass the bakery. The smell of burnt barley and old yeast hits your nose like a joke. They're baking, which rolls again, crusty lumps of rye shaped like screaming faces. Kids love them. Sometimes they get the nose wrong, and it just looks like sadness with raisins. You used to eat those rolls when you were 10. You thought they were funny. You didn't understand then that they were modeled after your future. You step in something, hopefully mud, but given the chickens, the drunks, and the town's general attitude toward sanitation, you doubt it. Behind you, the boy with the rope chuckles. She's walking straight. He says, "Guess the devil hasn't got her hips yet." You want to turn and spit in his face, but your mouth is too dry. Again, you decide to smile instead. A slow, deliberate smile. He shuts up. That's the problem with monsters. They're never ready when the prey bares teeth. He glances at his boots, like maybe they'll give him backup. At the square, you pass the stocks. Last week, they held a drunk who pissed on the chapel wall. This week, they're empty, cleaned, and waiting. For you, probably. A boy is pretending to be a judge in front of them, waving a stick like a gavel. He shouts, "Burn her," and laughs. His mother claps. The gallows loom in the distance. Not yet in use this week, but hopeful. The wood creaks in the breeze like it's already whispering your name. A raven perches atop the beam. It tilts its head and croaks. Omen or insult, you're too tired to care. You arrive at the magistrate's door. The hall is cold, like truth. The walls are stone, damp with mildew and old sentences. The floor is dirt. They say it's symbolic. You think it's just lazy masonry. You're offered no water, no chair. Eventually, they sit you down in a chair that's missing one leg. Balance is earned, apparently. The room smells like candle wax, old wine, and old men. The magistrate enters. Jonathan Clee, whose face has the shape of a spoiled pear and the disposition of a tax collector with a toothache. He walks like he's followed by applause. He's not. He doesn't greet you. He doesn't look at you. He looks through you, like he's auditioning for God. His wig is crooked. His judgment isn't. "I'm told," he begins, "that you speak to birds." You pause, not because you're shocked, but because you're deciding whether to laugh or start barking. "I feed them breadcrumbs," you say. Breadcrumbs or curses? You blink. He says it like the words are interchangeable. Maybe they are here. You glance at the scribe, who is already scribbling confesses to feeding familiars. He continues. Agnes reports hearing, singing, after sunset. You nod. It's called the lullaby. For my daughter. There's murmuring behind him. A scribe writes something down. Probably confessed to summoning moonlight. The boy behind you snickers. You want to ask if he was born with a rope or just borrowed his father's shame. He leans forward. And what say you to the accusation that your garden grows too fast? You almost snort. Almost. I piss on the roots, you say. Gasps. Not at the act, but at the word. Piss. You've already said too much. You've already lost. The magistrate's eyes narrow like a butcher measuring a pig. The magistrate folds his hands. The devil's language is vulgar. So is yours, you whisper. That's when the boys step forward. Their boots thud like punctuation. You wonder which one volunteered. You wonder if his mother's proud. You're not sentenced yet, but you are. Everyone knows how this story ends. It doesn't end with truth. It ends with spectacle. The performance has begun, and you're the final act. You're led to the holding room. For stone walls, a small window, and a pile of straw that counts as bedding. There's a rat under it. Probably your new lawyer. He seems well fed. You sit. You breathe. You examine the single beam of light that slices through the high window and lands on your lap like a forgotten blessing. You try not to hope. Hope is the slowest poison here. It blooms in the lungs and rots the ribs. From outside, you hear laughter. The kind of laughter people make when they've decided they're good and someone else is not. The kind that echoes. You lean your head back against the wall and close your eyes. Tomorrow is the trial, but it won't be fair. Trials never are when the verdict wears boots. You wonder what color you'll burn. You hope it's something memorable. The trial doesn't begin so much as it emerges, like mold or regret. There is no trumpet, no announcement. Just the slow scrape of chairs and the creak of old floorboards as the town's elders gather in the church-turned courtroom. They sit in pews repurposed for punishment. God, presumably, watches from somewhere offstage, politely declining to comment. You're brought in through the side door, like meat, not guest. You're barefoot. Someone has tied your wrists with a ribbon, which seems both insulting and festive. The crowd stares as if you're already ash. There's Agnes again, front row, her bonnet starched into a blade. She smiles like a cat at a birdcage. The room smells of mildew, tallow, and cheap soap. Not because anyone washed, but because someone spilled a barrel of it last week, and now everything just smells like effort. The magistrate takes his seat. His wig is powdered like a pastry. His eyes are bloodshot from wine or boredom. A rooster crows outside. Even it sounds accusatory. The charges are read. They are many. Speaking to birds. Growing herbs too, enthusiastically. Owning 3 cats. Singing after sundown. Laughing during a sermon. Using the word widdershins in casual conversation. One woman swears she saw your shadow move when you didn't. Another says your eyes change color when you lie. Someone else insists your chimney smoke curled counterclockwise. Apparently, that's damning now. You consider asking them which color means truth and which means murder just to see them squirm. Instead, you breathe through your nose and practice the ancient art of not screaming. A young girl is brought forward. Her name is Elsbeth. She's 8, smells like milk, and looks like she's been coached harder than a dancing bear. She claims you turned her doll's eyes red, that it blinked on its own, that it whispered to her about fire. Also, the doll now refuses to eat porridge. You almost admire the imagination. Almost. Then comes the midwife. Gray as an old stone, hands like tree roots. She says your last child died in the womb because you refused to eat blessed bread. Never mind that the bread was moldy. Never mind that you were vomiting blood for 2 days. Never mind that grief doesn't make good testimony. She speaks in solemn tones, like she's reading from a gravestone carved just this morning. A butcher testifies that your presence causes his sausages to split. A man whose fence collapsed blames you for spiteful winds. A baker accuses you of eyeing his yeast. No one laughs. Not even you. The scribe writes everything down. His quill scratches like a rat trying to escape a coffin. You consider asking him to draw a little devil in the margins. He probably already has. You're finally allowed to speak. You stand. You look out at the crowd. Half of them have taken your eggs. A quarter have taken your advice. The rest wouldn't be able to spell your name without a miracle. You speak slowly, not because you're afraid, but because rage moves like syrup when it's cold. I healed your children. You say, I buried mina. I sang to the night because silence is worse. I grow things because the earth doesn't lie. They don't like that. Truth makes them itch. The magistrate clears his throat like it's personal. You deny the devil then? He asks. You grin. I deny you. Gasps. A woman drops her rosary. Someone coughs dramatically. The magistrate's face turns the color of pork. That's when the priest steps forward. He's new, imported from the city, young, clean-shaven, and painfully sure of himself. He holds a book. The book, leather-bound and heavy. He starts to preach. He calls you sister of serpents, whisperer of blasphemy, a chalice of wickedness, a tithe of terror, a she-goat of sin. You think he missed his calling as a playwright, or maybe a butcher. He opens the book, read the verse, something about fire and purification, and then he produces a relic, a twisted bit of bone in a glass jar. The crowd gasps like it's holy. You think it looks like a toe, a very unimpressive one. They ask if you want to confess. You ask if the priest wants to trade shoes. He does not. You go on. You remind them that when the plague came, they begged you for teas. When the river froze, you broke the ice. When the midwife lost her daughter, you sat with her. When the baker's roof collapsed, you loaned your goat for warmth. And still, here you are. The jury leaves. It consists of 7 men who once called you neighbor, friend, or not worth listening to. They return within the hour. No one looks surprised. Guilty, of course. The magistrate announces your sentence. Death by fire. Tomorrow morning. The crowd exhales like they've been holding it in all day. Someone claps. Someone cries. Someone sells apple tarts at the back. A child drops his and looks at you like you cursed it. You are led back to your cell. There is straw and silence and the faint smell of something dead in the corner. Possibly dignity. You lie down and stare at the ceiling. There's a crack shaped like a forked tongue. You wonder if it was always there. A spider crawls past your fingers. You let it. It's the first living thing that hasn't recoiled from your touch today. You sleep, or try to. Dreams come. You see your daughter's face. You see the garden. You see flames that do not burn. You see your own hands, stained with soil, holding nothing. You dream of flying, not as a witch, but as a bird escaping the storm. Tomorrow you die, but tonight you remember, and you laugh. Just once. Quiet, bitter, and alive. They take your clothes. Not because you'll escape. There's no door, no rope, no miracle coming, but because they say it's protocol. The guard mumbles it like it's an apology, but doesn't make eye contact. He smells of onions and guilt. He leaves you with a shift thin enough to shame a ghost. The cell is stone, damp and cold as winter breath. The straw has been stirred so many times by rats, it's practically soup. You curl into it like an afterthought. Outside the tiny barred window, the moon glares down like a bitter mother. You try to sleep. Instead, you shiver. Then the footsteps. They echo down the corridor like nails tapping on a coffin lid. At first slow, then slower, then a pause. Then your door creaks open. You expect a priest. Maybe the magistrate come to gloat. Instead, it's a child. Elsbeth, the same girl who accused your doll of whispering fire. She looks smaller now. She clutches a crust of bread like it might forgive her. Her eyes are wet. I didn't mean it, she whispers. You blink at her. No one stops her. No one even notices she's gone. I didn't mean it, she says again. But my mother said if I didn't speak, we'd be next. You nod. You don't forgive her. But you understand. She sets the bread down. Runs. You do not touch the bread. It looks like shame. The hours stretch like a rack. You hear bells in the distance. Midnight mass. Someone stumbles in the alley and vomits. A dog howls. A woman laughs too loudly and is immediately shushed by the night. Your stomach growls. Your knees ache. Your heart does something strange. It beats like it remembers something. Someone. A name. A warmth. You don't say it. Names are dangerous now. Another visitor. This time it's Apollon, the gravedigger. He brings a flask. Can't offer mercy, he says, but I can offer distraction. You take a sip. It burns. It's awful. It's perfect. He stays a while. Talks about his wife, dead these 12 years. About the cat that won't leave his garden. About the dream he had where the dead stood up and argued with the priest. You don't say much, but he doesn't expect you to. He leaves behind the flask. Another hour. Then Agnes. Of course. She doesn't speak. She just stands outside the bars, eyes narrowed, lips thin, hands like knives. She holds your shawl. This is yours, she says. You stare. I kept it, she adds, almost tender. Since your wedding. She sets it down and vanishes. The shawl still smells like lavender. And fear. You wrap it around your shoulders. And you remember, Agnes, once your sister-in-law, once your friend, once the only one who knew about the baby, the first one who held her, the only one who didn't flinch when the fever came, the only one who stayed through the screaming, the only one who buried her with you. That was before the war, before the hunger, before the whispers. You sit, you breathe, you begin to hum, low and soft. A lullaby, your daughter's lullaby. Another hour. The night deepens. Shadows thicken like clotting blood. Your breath clouds in the cold. You trace a finger on the stone, draw the symbol your mother taught you. Protection, or at least defiance. It glows only in your memory now. You remember your wedding night, how your husband's hands trembled, how the room smelled of rosemary. You remember your first harvest, knees in the dirt, laughing with your neighbors. Before their eyes went flat and hard. Before they forgot how your soup fed their sick. You remember the fever that took your child. How her little hands felt like burning paper. How you screamed into a blanket so the village wouldn't hear. How Agnes brought wine and willow bark, even as the priest hissed about sin. You cried just once. One tear, hot and fast. Then it's gone, like the rest. Another visitor. This time it's the rat. You name him Benedict. He doesn't bite, just sits by your foot and cleans his whiskers. You imagine him gnawing through the ropes tomorrow, leading an uprising of rodents. A ridiculous, glorious mutiny. Benedict leaves. He has places to be. The moon begins to set. You hear the guards waking. You hear the rooster, confused and early. You hear the town's breath draw in, like it's afraid to exhale. The kindling is being stacked now. You can smell it, pine and judgment. And then you laugh. You laugh because it's all so fragile. Because these men with their hammers and their torches and their books have no idea how small they are. You laugh because they think fire can erase you. You laugh because you've already become something they can't burn. The door opens again. No guard this time. Just the executioner's apprentice. Eyes down, lips pressed. He hands you a flower, crushed, wilted, but real. A violet. He doesn't say why. He doesn't need to. You take it. You press it to your chest. And you rise. Barefoot, in rags, wrapped in lavender and memory, holding a dying flower like a banner. The crowd is waiting. You step outside and smile because they think this is the end. But it's only the kindling. You are the fire. The square smells of wet wood and old meat. Morning fog clings to rooftops like a guilty conscience. The town is awake now, fully, sharply awake. Faces crowd the scaffold like boils, blotchy, sour, and ready to burst. They've brought their children. Some have snacks. A boy chews roasted chestnuts while his sister counts the lashes on your back. Not yet given, but already imagined. You are the main event, the sacrificial theater, today's featured entertainment. The priest speaks. He bellows about sin, corruption, Jezebels, and devils wearing skin like yours. He sweats through his sermon, passion or indigestion. it's hard to tell. He waves a book at you as if it might fly from his hand and beat the heresy out of you itself. You tune him out. Instead, you study the crowd. There's Anna, who once wept in your arms when her husband died of the pox. There's Willem, who used to trade you eggs for rosemary. He won't meet your eyes. There's Father Gerhardt, hands folded like he's praying you turn to cinders gracefully. At the edge of the crowd, someone yawns. The executioner approaches. Big man, scabbed knuckles. He looks like a barrel someone taught to walk. His breath smells like garlic and regret. He doesn't speak, just gestures to the stake. You step forward. The wood groans under your weight, already impatient. They tie your hands. Not too tight. The rope has been used before, splintered with old sins, softened by past wrists. You feel every knot like a story. Someone coughs. A baby cries. A bird screams. Not a songbird, something that nests in ruin. The torch is lit. The fire begins small, timid, curious, like a child testing its boundaries. Then it grows bolder, crackling with hunger. You smell smoke, hair, history, but you do not scream. Instead, you speak. I forgive none of you, you say. Calm, cold, clear. Not because I can't, because I won't. Gasps ripple like minnows. The priest stumbles over a Latin verse. He looks like he wants to call down thunder, but misplaces the words halfway through. I curse your cowardice, you say. Your sermons without mercy. Your children raised on fear. Your God, who listens only to men with clubs. The flames snap like applause. You look up. The sky is so blue, it's offensive. Like it has the audacity to go on being beautiful. The heat licks higher now. Your feet blister. Your dress begins to smoke. Someone faints. Someone else vomits. The priest is still yelling, but his voice is cracking like old wood. You speak again. But I bless the rats, you murmur, and the weeds, and the girls who will one day spit on your statues. The crowd is no longer cheering. There is only the crackle, the silence, and your voice. A woman in the front row drops her eyes. She recognizes your shawl. Another takes a step back. A child begins to cry. The fire finds your shawl. It flares bright, violet and gold. The scent of lavender cuts through the smoke. For one moment, just one, it smells like peace. Like home. Like defiance dressed in perfume. And then, something changes. The wind shifts. The fire surges sideways. It leaps. It dances up the priest's robes. The crowd screams. Chaos uncoils. Someone tries to run, but trips. Another shouts that the devil has come. The bishop faints gracefully, like a leaf surrendering. A boy yells, "It's her. She did it." Someone else cries, "No, she's gone." Because you are. You're gone. Or so the story says. Later, they will argue. Some will swear you smiled as the fire took you. Others will say the ropes burned first. That you rose into the air like smoke, like a curse, like a promise kept. No body will be found. Just ash. Just a violet. Just a name scratched into the stone wall of your cell. Discover days later beneath the straw. Remember me when the wind changes. They will. Children will whisper your name when the firewood cracks wrong. Old women will spit on their doorsteps for luck and claim it's for you. The rats will return to the cell and sleep quietly where you once sat. The flowers will bloom brighter where your bones never were. And somewhere, miles away, in a village not yet built, a girl will feel brave and not know why. Because witches burn fast, but legends burn forever. And you were never just a witch. You were the match. You are 14, and your name has already been erased. In its place, a symbol, a softness, a cage. Wu Zhao, they call you now. It means something elegant, something obedient. A name shaped to be whispered, never shouted. They dress you in peach-colored silk and rice powder, so pale your cheeks look embalmed. You are painted, perfumed, polished, then delivered like an expensive fruit to a man who is already half in the grave. The imperial harem is not a place. It is a hierarchy of death. Every smile hides a strategy. Every gesture is a lie. The concubines measure one another like tailors. You are too young to be threatening. For now, when they lead you into the emperor's chamber, the room smells like mold and sandalwood and old blood. He lies on a couch made of gold and exhaustion. His skin is yellow parchment. His eyes flicker toward you like a dying candle in wind. He waves one liver-spotted hand. You kneel. The floor is cold and sticky. You stay bowed until your knees scream. The eunuch coughs. The emperor forgets you are there. You bleed your first night. Not from love. From time. A thread of red stains the silk under your knees. When the attendants clean it, no one looks you in the eye. That night you were sent to the sleeping quarters. A hall of cold stone and colder stairs. You share space with 30 other girls. One cries. One writes poems. One sharpens a hairpin too slowly. You do not speak. You listen, and you learn. By 16, you're known. Not loved, not favored, but remembered. You quote the classics backward. You recite sutras from memory. You play the pipa until your fingers blister, then you play again. Not because the emperor asks, because he doesn't. You make yourself impossible to ignore. He grows curious, then indulgent, then forgetful again. But you have planted the seed. You befriend a servant girl who carries tea to the empress. You learn where the astrologers meet. You watch who leaves the kitchen at night and who doesn't return in the morning. The court is a labyrinth of silks and whispers. You navigate it barefoot. The emperor dies in the 9th month of winter. The announcement is formal, rigid, and as theatrical as an opera. The harem is dressed in white. You are expected to wail. Some girls claw their faces. One faints artistically. You do none of these things. You watch. Tradition says all concubines of a dead emperor must retire to a Buddhist convent. Shave heads. Silent lives. Burial by scripture. So you shave your head. You wear the gray robe. You bow to the Buddha. And you wait. You were 17. You were a concubine to a ghost. Now you are a shadow with a heartbeat. And in the shadows, something stirs. It is the new emperor who stirs it. The son, Taizong's heir, a boy who once stared at you with the wide eyes of someone still learning desire. Now a man, he visits the temple. He brings incense. You bring memory. He prays with trembling hands. You touch his sleeve by accident. You meet again and again. The temple walls do not speak, but the silence buzzes with secrets. You do not seduce him. You let him seduce the idea of you. One night, he leaves a jade hairpin on your altar. The next week, you are summoned to court. The ministers protest. The Empress Dowager spits curses through her teeth. A concubine from a dead emperor's harem returning to court is scandal, heresy, a bad omen carved in flesh. But the new emperor does not flinch. He remembers your voice, and you return, not as a girl, not even as a concubine. You return as something new, a problem, a prophecy, a threat with painted lips. You are Wu Zhao, once erased, now rewritten, and history has just cracked open its first rib. There is a smile women wear when they are planning something unspeakable. It is not wide. It does not show teeth. It is small, still, and almost kind. It is the smile you wear now. You have returned to the palace not as ornament, but as omen. The halls you once crept through now echo your name in whispers, some trembling, some furious, none indifferent. You're no longer just Wu Zhao, concubine of a dead man. You are now Wu Zhao, favorite of a living emperor. And for that, you are hated. The empress watches you with the brittle smile of a woman who has read her own funeral poem in advance. She offers you cordial tea and poison in equal parts. She invites you to ceremonies where her eyes never blink. Her ladies-in-waiting follow you like ghosts with lacquered nails. The court is a pit of velvet vipers. Every word you speak is dissected. Every gesture, an accusation. When you walk, you glide. When you answer, you do not rise to bait. They want a scandal. You give him grace. That is the real danger. You become the emperor's consort again, officially this time. He writes poems about your voice. He names you pure radiance of the realm. You pretend to blush. You pretend very well. At night, you lie beside him, stroking his temples as he speaks of dreams, expanding the empire, reforming the law, eliminating corruption. Noble, naive, you nod. You murmur agreement. You count his weaknesses like coins. He loves you. That is his greatest one. You love power. That is yours. When the Empress accuses you of sorcery, you do not blink. She says you've cursed her womb, stolen her son's favor, seduced heaven itself. You kneel before the tribunal like a statue carved for mercy. You weep once, exactly once. The Emperor declares the matter closed. But you remember, later that month, a maid vanishes from the Empress's chambers. Then a scribe, then a priest. No one mentions it. Not aloud. You birth your first son. The palace erupts in painted joy. The Emperor drinks like a fool and names him gift from heaven. You let him choose the name. What does it matter? Names are only useful when carved into thrones. The Empress visits. She smiles over the crib. Says, he has your eyes. You say nothing. You simply smile back. Because you know whose eyes the child really has. And they are not meant for peace. You begin visiting court meetings. Quietly, casually. The men call it charming. Then unusual. Then concerning. They say women should not sit where war is planned and justice is measured. You agree. You say, I only listen. You listen and remember everything. You begin writing. Petitions, edicts, reforms. You offer them in your husband's name, of course. He laughs, signs them. The court grumbles. The poor rejoice. The farmers write poems about you. The silk weavers chant your name in looms. You are becoming more than a woman. You are becoming rumor. Icon, a god with a pulse. The Empress falls ill, or pretends to. You're not sure. What you are sure of is this. Her influence fades. Her allies recede. She writes prayers to heaven. You write policies for Earth. The Emperor grows tired. He naps through meetings. He defers to you without noticing. You place advisors. You grew ministers. You make allies of enemies and ghosts of friends. In the mirror, you see your smile sharpen. The widow's smile. Still small, quiet. One night, the Empress dies. They say it was sickness. You nod. You don't look surprised. And in the morning, you wear white. Not for mourning, but for rebirth. Power is not inherited. Not truly. It is exhumed, dredged up from beneath silk veils and shallow graves. And you, Wu Zhao, are learning to dig with bare hands and a smile. The Emperor is dying. Not dramatically, not poetically, slowly, like a candle guttering in a banquet hall long after the guests have left. His skin yellows. His appetite fades. The ministers begin speaking louder, louder than they should. You do not speak louder. You speak less. The court grows nervous. A nation holds its breath. You exhale. Each morning, you brush his hair. You pour his tea. You nod as he forgets your name. But each evening, you write decrees in his voice. You review tax edicts. You adjust military routes. You use his seal. At first, only with his consent. Then, only with his absence. You are his breath now, his mind, his hand. The ministers know. Some whisper. Some kneel. Some vanish. The palace becomes quieter. The Empress Dowager is long dead. The old guard are old no longer, just gone. The new advisors owe their silk robes to your suggestions. The generals owe their survival to your letters. The Emperor sleeps. You reign in everything but name. One night he wakes, just for a moment. He grips your wrist, his voice thin as smoke. Promise me they will not forget my name. You kiss his hand. You whisper, they will only ever remember yours. It is a beautiful lie. The next morning, he is dead. Now the throne is a wound. The court panics. Ministers scramble. Factions flare like dry parchment. Everyone has a plan. Everyone has an heir. Everyone but you. You have something better. You have silence. You do not speak at the funeral. You wear the whitest robe. You do not sob. You do not falter. You stand beside your son, the child the emperor named his legacy. And you watch the empire squint into the rising sun. searching for a figure to bow to. They find your silhouette. Your son is too young to rule. Convenient. You're named regent. Unprecedented. Unthinkable. Unstoppable. They call it temporary. They say you will guide until he comes of age. They are correct. You guide him. You guide everything. And in guiding, you tighten the leash. You move court meetings to your solar chamber. You insist on smaller groups. You discuss military campaigns while weaving your hair. You deliver sermons through silk. You learn to wield the brush like a blade. You slice through corruption with ink and metaphor. You publicly mourn your husband while privately replacing every official who doubted you with one who doesn't. The empire does not falter. It flourishes. You send emissaries to Tibet. You reduce famine in Hunan. You enforce fair grain prices in Chang'an. Farmers praise your justice. Merchants call your rule golden. You make sure your son hears them. He scowls. He is a boy no longer. And he understands now. The throne he was promised is occupied. Occupied by someone who never sat in it. The court begins to murmur. They say your son is old enough. They say a mother's duty must end. They say heaven favors balance, and you have tipped the scale. You nod. You smile. And one morning, your son is gone. He abdicates, officially to study religion, to seek wisdom, to pursue peace. Unofficially, no one speaks of it. Not after the general who questioned you is found drowned in his tea. Not after the astrologer who cast the wrong horoscope was exiled to the western mountains. Now, there is no emperor. There is only you, Wu Zhao, daughter of merchants, widow of dragons, mother of none. You do not inherit the throne. You exhume it. You crown yourself with silence, with memory, with blood. And for the first time in China's long, brittle history, the Son of Heaven is a woman. They call you a dragon in a silk gown, a serpent wrapped in scripture, a mother who eats her sons, and a ruler who whispers in the ears of ghosts. You take it all as a compliment. The throne is no longer a seat of ritual. It is a forge, and you, Wu Zhao, are the smith. Your reign begins not with celebration, but with correction. 1,000 silk banners hang over the capital, not to honor your name, but to remind them it is now the only name that matters. The ministers who once whispered behind your back now kneel at your feet. They call it obedience. You call it housekeeping. You summon the bureaucrats, the loyal, the liars, the lukewarm. You look each of them in the eye and ask the same simple question. What is the duty of a subject to the throne? Some stammer, some grovel. One recites Confucius until his tongue ties itself in a knot. Only one answers with clarity, a young magistrate with calloused hands and ink-stained sleeves. To serve until the work is finished. You make a minister of rights. The rest are demoted, reassigned, or gently erased. The poets begin writing about you in metaphors. Some liken you to the moon, distant, radiant, untouchable. Others compare you to the blade that cuts the moon in half. You do not object. You commission art. You have scrolls inked with images of bodhisattvas wearing your face. At first, the temples flinch. The abbots sweat through their robes. One weeps. You offer him a silk handkerchief and a seat in exile. The others adjust. You commission statues of the Buddha, huge ones, towering ones, not just in Luoyang, but across the empire. You have them carved with female features, subtle at first, then unmistakable. The monks protest. The temples whisper. You smile and fund the libraries instead, then the roads, then the granaries. Faith follows food. Scripture becomes your shield. Doctrine, your dagger. You write new sutras. You find ancient prophecies that speak of a woman born under the fire star, destined to bring order to the realm. Your scholars discover these texts in a sealed cave near Mount Song. How fortunate! Your critics grow louder. They call you usurper, a witch, a stain on heaven's tapestry. They preach sermons with your name buried in curses. They circulate woodcuts depicting you with demon horns. You respond by inviting them to court. Publicly, graciously, with wine. They arrive in ceremonial robes. ready to debate, ready to accuse, ready to burn you on a pyre of scripture. They leave in wooden boxes. You sign their obituaries personally, each one a masterpiece in understatement. The people murmur. Then the harvest is good. The roads are repaired. The taxes are fair. The widows receive stipends. And the murmuring ceases. You do not hide behind walls. You travel. You appear on temple steps. You walk barefoot through rice paddies. You kneel in the rain beside plague victims and order doctors to their doorsteps. You are seen. You are felt. And slowly, dangerously, you are loved. You outlaw the forced shaving of widows. You outlaw child concubines. You outlaw the old men who cling to old power like mold clings to stone. The nobles grind their teeth. You grind your ink. You send envoys to Korea. You send gifts to Japan. You write letters in 6 dialects. You issue reforms that make bureaucrats weep and peasants cheer. You open schools. For boys. For girls. For anyone who can read, and especially those who can't. Your name becomes law. Your portrait is painted into temples. A woman in dragon robes, one hand holding a scroll, the other holding the world. You instruct the artist to give you laugh lines. Heaven does not strike you down. That silence is louder than any sermon. You're no longer just a ruler. You're a storm in silk. And the people begin to pray in your name. Not out of fear, but because for the first time in memory, justice wears earrings. There is a silence that follows absolute power. It is not peace. It is not serenity. It is the sound of history holding its breath. You, Wu Zhao, now called Empress Shengshun, have ruled alone for years. The throne has not crumbled beneath your weight. It has hardened. The empire, once brittle and fractious, now bends like a reed in your hand. But the world does not stand still, and neither do your enemies. They whisper now not of your rise, but of your fall. They speak in candlelit corridors. They offer rice wine to hungry ghosts. They write prophecies in urine and blood behind temple screens. They think you are old. They mistake age for weakness. You will teach them the difference. It begins with an assassination attempt. A cup of chrysanthemum tea, slightly too bitter. A eunuch who flinches when asked to drink first. A letter found beneath a concubine's pillow, written in code and cowardice. You do not panic. You do not rage. You host a banquet. At the banquet, you serve chrysanthemum wine. You make toasts. You smile. The ministers drink, though their hands tremble. At the end of the meal, you clap once. A row of soldiers enters. Silent. Implacable. 12 officials vanish that night. Their families are relocated. Their names are erased from the record. You sleep well. The court grows quieter. But quieter is not safer. Quieter is simply the sound of sharper knives. You shift strategy. You do not trust the sons of nobles. You begin appointing men from the provinces, scholars, clerks, even farmers. The old guard call them peasants. You call them grateful. Your new officials do not owe their seats to bloodlines. They owe them to you. Loyalty, bought not with gold, but with opportunity. This is your new bureaucracy. Fast, responsive, fiercely loyal. It frightens the aristocracy. You can smell it. Outside the palace, the world is changing. Silk caravans reach Persia. Letters come from the caliph in Damascus. Merchants in Luoyang trade in gold, sapphires, and scandal. You begin printing proclamations with woodblocks. You open new ports. You reduce taxes on salt. You finance irrigation projects. You build a navy, small but sharp. You don't need to conquer. You need to control the flow of grain. You send spies dressed as monks. You fund playwrights who write about virtuous empresses. You outlaw historical scrolls that describe women as footnotes. You're not a footnote. You are the pen. In your inner palace, your days grow more ritualized. Each morning begins with incense. You speak to no one for the first hour. You listen to the palace itself. The creak of sandalwood, the flap of cranes over the lotus pond, the soft murmur of history whispering through the walls. Some say you have become eccentric. Others say mad. You begin dreaming of your past selves, the novice girl in red robes, the concubine staring down nobles, the regent with the cold tea. You write down these dreams. You burn the pages. You mix the ash into your ink. Your proclamations now taste of memory. Your sons, those who remain, grow restless. They circle you like vultures, waiting for you to fall. You do not fall. You summon them one by one. You ask them riddles. You watch their eyes dart. You ask them to speak of statecraft, of justice, of history. One quotes your enemies. You smile and exile him to the southern frontier. His ship sinks mysteriously before arrival. Another claims heaven speaks only through men. You make him a monk. He shaves his head with tears in his eyes. You keep only one near. He speaks little. He listens more. He may survive you. You know your time is not infinite. The astrologers fidget. The doctors bring more herbs. The servants tiptoe. You're dying, yes, but not quietly. You summon your scribes. You order a chronicle, your chronicle, not written by men who called you witch and usurper, but by your chosen scholars. Scholars who understand that history is not truth. History is victory wearing ink. You revise the language of succession. You craft a will that requires multiple witnesses and a ritual oath. You know the moment you die, the knives will come out, but you intend to dull them with preparation. You write a decree to be read posthumously. The dragon need not be reborn as a man. You receive your last audience in a garden surrounded by white cranes. Your breath is thin. Your fingers tremble, but your gaze is sharp enough to cut jade. The ministers kneel. You speak not of war, not of wealth. You speak of paper, of the power of the written word, of how a decree can outlive a sword. Then you dismiss them. You ask for plum wine. You drink, and you sleep. Your last dream is of a phoenix, rising not from flame, but from ink. The empire mourns, some in sincerity, most in relief. But even the ones who hated you cannot deny what you have done. You were a woman, and you ruled, and China did not end. It began.